You are here listening to Her Red Boots podcast. I'm your host, Rebecca Gore, here to share my heart with you. Let's do this. Oh my gosh, look! It's a sign and it's so cool, and we're in progress of figuring out how to hang it and all this stuff, but we couldn't leave today without having it. It makes me so excited. And I'm just so thankful. I'm so thankful for all the Lord has been doing in the midst of us. Like, just even the testimonies of people coming in and saying, look, God has touched my life. He's encouraged me. It just makes my heart so happy, because sometimes it is tiny steps that end up increasing and growing and seeing what God can do in just small moments. And I'm just so thankful. But today is my birthday, and I'm excited to share it with you. It makes me so happy, like, to be here in this moment with you and wanting to encourage you. My heart is to encourage, and so having this personal moment of encouragement to you and just makes my heart happy. But in that, I was like really wanting to bless one of you with coffee. I wanted to create a space that I can share coffee with you, because it's one of my favorite things. Most of my friends who know that, they're like, Becca goes everywhere, and everywhere she goes, she brings coffee. So yeah. So if you like Starbucks or Dunkin' or whichever, I can share that with you. But how I want to do that is, if you, in the comments below, just put your birthday. You don't have to share the year, of course. If you want to, you can. You know, I don't think I would want to, but that's all right. That's just me. Share that, and then I'm going to just randomly pick one of you, and then I'll send you some money to get coffee on me. And maybe if you're local, we could actually sit together and have coffee. That would be fun too. You know, God is doing so many great things. And so I just want to start with just prayer, that God would be here in the midst of us. I know he is, and so, but just to like honor him in this moment. And so God, we just honor you. We're just so thankful, God, for what you're doing. Thank you that you are so awesome, and you're wonderful, and you're powerful, and you give us life, and we get to have this life, and we get to enjoy it with you. And I just am thankful for that enjoyment in life. I just ask, God, that you would speak to us, that you'd encourage our hearts, that we could grow, become more like you. In Jesus' name, amen, amen. God is so good. And I just want to stir your heart, really. I felt really stirred, and it's been a stirring of sorts, that God is like wanting to deposit creativity in us. Give us a living creativity in our lives. And how that functions and how that comes across is so different. But if you know him, then you know that he's creator God, and that he's a God that has created lots of amazing things. And it doesn't take you very far to step outside into the outdoors to see his creativity. Honestly, you could just look in the mirror and to know that you actually don't look like anyone else on the earth, unless you have like a twin that's like just like you. But like that, there is something about you that's different and unique and special, that's completely different than anyone else that could stand next to you in the same mirror. And that he did that for all of us. Even my children and I were talking about like how we each have like 10 fingerprints, and none of our fingerprints are the same. 7 billion people, times it by 10. Like, just think about the creativeness of that alone. And that's something that like really isn't that important, in the sense of like, you don't look at it very closely, you don't see it, doesn't feel like it affects life. But he's so creative, even in small things and even in big things. And it's just amazing to see it. But I feel like he wants to release through his Spirit something that's significantly important to our 2024. A spirit of creativity, a release of his Spirit, that he himself would be released in us, that we would create even more. And so I want to just like kind of bank into a scripture. It's in Exodus 31. I'm going to read it to you. And the Lord himself is speaking to Moses, and he says, see, I have called by name this guy named something that starts with a B. I don't know. And he's the son of Uri and the son of Hur, from the tribe of Judah, and I have filled him with the Spirit of God, with ability and intellect, with knowledge and all craftsmanship, to devise artistic designs, to work in gold and silver and bronze, in the cutting of stones, in the setting, and in the carving of wood, to work in every craft. And I was thinking about the Spirit of God like resting on us enough for us to create. And maybe you could say you're not creative. Maybe you don't feel creative at all. You're like, I don't draw. I don't sing. I don't write music. I don't play an instrument. I don't work with clay. The list, whatever I think we each all think of creative people, and then we classify them. They're the creative people. But in reality, we all function in a spirit of creativity, and we can all function in a way of being creative. And sometimes we need to stir it up. Just think about the wildest, weirdest thing you've ever seen. Think about if I said, I want you to describe something, that imagination that God has given you and he's gifted you with. And then lend your imagination to the Lord for this moment, for your life, bring that imagination into the hands of God and say, God, stir my imagination. Give me intentionality in my imagination. Give me wonder in my imagination. Let me just see something I've never seen before. And so through my story, I want to share just different pieces of where I've allowed the spirit of creativity maybe to stir my heart. And so I thought about lots of different ways, because I actually really love creating environments and spaces that create memory, create opportunity. I don't know. I like being creative. So within parenting, it's one of my favorite things, being a mom. In all honesty, I just am so thankful the Lord has gifted me with children to parent. And so I try to go after that in different ways. And I really feel sometimes when you pay attention to the Lord stirring in you, it can create a space to be creative in. And so last March, I was just I just felt I kept hearing adults be or say I wish I could do that. I wish I could play this instrument. I wish and it stirred my mind about how often as adults we come into that space of wishing we could do something that we've always thought that would be really cool, playing the bass. Oh, I wish I could play the bass. It would be so cool. And then you go, well, why don't you do it? And then they're like, oh, I don't have time. Or I don't know, and I think that happens and so I took stock in it of the thought of how do I shift that in my children, that they actually recognize that something can happen. And so I decided that I would have Passion Month. So March became Passion Month in our house. And I told each of my children they had to choose one thing that they wish they could do, whether grand or small or big. One of them picked Lego building. One of them picked drawing. And I said, okay, you're going to lend. I don't remember if I said 10 or 20 minutes every single day of the week to it. Do you know how often as adults we can just scroll for 10 minutes? Or sit and veg and watch 6 shows when you're oh, I was just going to watch one. And you've just spent how many hours doing that? We can always come to those places and say we don't have time. And so I was wanting to teach them that in the time of their lives, which they really don't have a lot going on, that if they lended some of that time to something that they thought they wanted to grow, that after a month of doing that, where would they sit in it? And so we did that. We each picked something and we each spent time every day working on it. And I saw them develop gifts and saw them try stuff that they weren't 100% sure about. Sometimes you're you have these dreams of oh, if I could play the bass, it'd be the coolest thing ever. And then you get into it, you're yeah, I don't really like that as much as I thought. And I wanted that kind of happening, but I wanted them to give time to it. So that was just one of the creative ideas that I felt the Lord stirred in my heart and that they walked away with that impression that if I gave even 20 minutes of my time for a month, how much could I have grown in it? How much did I grow and know now that I didn't know before? How much did it stir my heart? You know, all of those things. And so I gave them something that I felt like a key to look back on as they grow, to say, oh, if I really want to gain ability or have ability in something, I can put time to it. I can do it. So that was like one of moments to me in parenting that God stirred my heart and gave me a creative idea. And I think sometimes what we do, we get into parenting, we get into life, and it becomes mundane and boring. And I think Jesus represented not the mundane and not the boring. His life was fully moving forward in faith, doing life, eating, fishing, getting on a boat, all the different things like that. But in that, I feel like he even displayed creativity to us. When he healed people, he didn't heal them the same way. How amazingly cool is that? Sometimes I look at that and I'm like, God, you could have just said, be healed to every blind person. And that would have been enough. But he took mud and spit and healed one guy, which is wild and weird and kind of gross, you know? And then he caused another guy to put his hands on his eyes and he was healed. And then there was other people that were healed and it was dipping in disgusting water, and yet they came out without leprosy. And it just is amazing. That was not Jesus, but amazing in the idea that even in healing, that he used creativity. And I just love it. There's a richness that he brought something fresh and new to each person that he encountered. It wasn't the same mold. And that, I think, is something that we could live through. That there's a freshness, a vibe of creativity, a life of creativity that should pour through us as we encounter people, as we do things, even in your marriage. When's the last time you intentionally put creativity into your marriage? You guys go see the same movie and eat the same snack, is that just routine? You just do this. We get in the car and we have to fight about which restaurant to eat at because no one wants to make a decision. Or do you actually put intentionality and creativity in it that you're we're going to, when we finish this day, before we go inside of our house, we're going to play our favorite love song. We're going to dance in our parking lot or our driveway. And we're going to just live the moment, bringing creativity into your relationships. One of my favorite things, I'll come in contact with people that are married and they'll be and my sister, she's can you give me some ideas? I need some help. But I just love, taking the box and destroying it and saying, we're not going to live in the same space all the time, but thriving with creativity in your relationships, in your friendships, do something different, push each other to strengthen one another in their own creativity. How can we create momentum and ideas and things together and building that? And I want to just stir your heart that there is more, that there's something more that God can do creatively, in your life. There's something so much more. Even for me, I just want to tell you that when I preach, I absolutely love illustrations. And I seek the Lord, saying, God, how can I give a picture of this? I think I pray and ask and desire something like that in the message and preach with it, because to me, it just is so exciting to see how God can create a visual of sorts for someone. So I use creativity even in my preaching, and asking the Spirit to come upon you. I was thinking about even for me, this sign and trying to figure out how to hang this sign. And I was mulling it over, in this room and in the space we're in right now. And, just this is so hard. I can't figure it out. I was I'm going to drive over there and I'm going to try to figure it out. I'm going to do this. And then one morning at 4:30 in the morning, I woke up and I don't know why I was thinking about the sign again, But all of a sudden, this idea of these poles that I had, I was like, I could use that. That would work. And then my idea was to put a sheet behind it, or like this like drapery of sorts behind it, which you can see it's not there because I put it up there and I didn't really like it once it was in this space. So sometimes it's just continually contending to work the spirit of creativity through your life. And I was just really thankful that even like the Lord just like all of a sudden it was like, bing, the light bulbs were on. And I was like, oh, that I could use that. That would be great. That he's willing and available for small things and big things in our lives. It's like amazing how much God is invested in our daily lives, allowing creativity to just flow through us and in us in all the aspects of our lives. How about even in your job? It's the last time you said, God, give me some kind of creativity in my workspace. I'm so bored with what it looks like. I need something new. I need you to stir up my imagination, my creativity, that I could bring something. I think that we forget that piece of it, that God has like this wealth of creative ideas that he wants to flood into the earth through us. I think that there's something more about like taking a moment and like sitting in awe and wonder of God and saying, God, how could you create through me? What could we come up with? Have you given space to it? Have you lent your time to it? Have you decided, you know what? I want to see what the Lord can do, just like he did through this guy for Moses. He poured over him intellect and ability and thought and creativity. If he's the same God and he doesn't have any kind of like favoritism, like why not you? Like why not you bring the greatest thing into the earth that we've ever seen? Have you even considered that there's things that the earth has yet to see? That there's things that God has thought of and created and knows about that he can actually speak to you about them. I always think about that when I think about a car, that at one point there wasn't a car. And then someone took a hold of a thought and ran with it. And they were driven with purpose in it. And they decided, you know what? This stirring, this excitement, this idea, like I'm tired of like riding horse carriages. I don't know. Like sometimes you gotta exhaust what you think is good so that you can have even what's greater. Like stepping beyond that, like even you could say, well, my parenting is good, but why not greater? Or my relationship, my marriage, we're good. It's good. Why not the best? Why not when people see your relationship, they're just stand in awe of like what God has done in and through you two, you know, like, or that someone actually has to say, time out, there's too many creative ideas, you know, like why not it be just like this constant flow? If the gate opened and the flood came through, why not to you? Even for you to say, I have so many creative thoughts that I can give them away. That's one of my favorite things is like when I encounter someone and they're like, I just don't know what to do. I'm like, let me stir my heart and let's join our thoughts together that maybe God could create with us and through us something that's brand new. Sometimes it's partnering with people and saying, let's sit and have a creative space. How do we create and envision and think different? Sometimes it comes in that space. Even in this story, in Exodus, the next verse, it says, and behold, I have appointed with him, this guy that's name starts with an O, the son of another guy from the tribe of Dan. And I have given him I have given to him able ability. And I just think about that, like he brought someone to walk alongside of this other guy, that they together had ability that moved forward the kingdom. And that's where you have to tie it to. Like, that this is like a kingdom. This is a kingdom thing. Like pulling in, saying, God pouring creative ideas into me is to release his kingdom into the earth, that people might come to know him, that people might see him in my life, and that the Creator God exists in the creativity that he poured in me. It is not boring to serve the Lord. Sometimes you just have to stir your heart up and say, man, I want something more. I want to wake up and say, today's going to be the most creative day I've ever lived. God's going to give me creative ideas in my parenting. He's going to give me creative ideas in my relationships. And I'm going to walk with great creativity in my job. And I'm going to see it explode in 2024 like I've never seen it explode before. Because that's the Spirit of God upon you. And when the Spirit of God is poured upon you, it flows through you. He moves in us. He uses like all of the recesses of us. And I just want to encourage you that there's something that the Lord does want to give. So why not you? Raise your hand and be like, yeah, me. It's me. I want God to do it through me. Like, if there's no limit to his creativity and his ability, then why not you? So I bless you with creativity, that the Spirit of the living God would just pour upon you right now, that he would give you dreams and ideas and inventions and creative thinking and things that you've never perceived, never even thought possible, that it would just be released over your life. And that it would flood your life, and it would be just like a conduit. It would flood through your life into this world. That even my life would be impacted by the creativity God's releasing on your life. So I just bless you. I bless you, and I just ask that you would just stir creativity like never before in your mind and in your heart. Give it time. Give it space. Even one of my friends just told me today, a mustard seed starts out very small. And look what it grows into, one of the largest plants. And it produces. So sometimes even when you have just a very small thing, don't discredit it and throw it away and think, it's probably not that good. You know, don't judge it too quickly before it has the time to produce the fruit in which God could do something so incredibly good. You know, he's really good at that, just putting his hand on something and exploding it into something marvelous. And so anyway, I'm glad I got to share my birthday with you. And I do hope that you have an amazing, creative, fun day. And I will see you later. Bye.